Hi, I'm Veronica. Today I would like to show you how you could breathe more efficiently using the whole potential of your diaphragm. I have other videos that show how you could work on the 3D, three-dimensional movement of your ribcage. And in this video, I would like to dive more into the situation where you would like to start feeling a little bit more of the movement, start using a little bit more of that potential of your lungs on the back side and on the sides of the body. So let's begin with a little test. You're going to need a belt for that. By the way, you don't need to sit on the ground for this at all. You can easily sit in the chair as well. And apart from the belt, you're going to need also a pillow, a blanket, and access to the wall. Okay, so once you set yourself, take a belt. It could be also a scarf if you don't have a belt. Feel for where you have your rib cage and go to the lowest end where your ribs end. Feel where is that place for you. Anywhere below feels much more squishy and there are no bones underneath. Once you've got it, you wrap the belt around it and then you cross it over, holding the two ends in your hands with the palms turned up. You're not tensing up your shoulders or your arm muscles. You're not pulling at the end so that you can't breathe. You're just finding enough of the of a pressure so that you can feel the feedback. And that's where you start breathing to the belt. So you want to notice if there's any movement, particularly at the sides and at the back of your rib cage. Now, if you don't feel much, this episode is for you. So you can remove the belt. And let's first do something to get a little bit more feedback or to help you to get that movement at the back of the ribcage. So if you were sitting at the chair, now go down to the ground and come close to the wall and have a blanket, folded blanket with you. So you don't really want it to be too wide. That's something like this will do. And then you want to place it at that lowest end of your rib cage again. And sit against the wall with that blanket behind you, touching the wall. Have your knees bent, feet on the mat for more support. And this blanket will give you more, and the wall behind it, most of all, will give you more feedback. So as you're here, you can start breathing again. Feeling how each inhalation is a bit of a press, of a push of the back of your rib cage into that soft blanket. And you might feel the kind of response from the wall behind you. But when you exhale, everything kind of softens. There's no more pushing against. So the inhalation is when you're breathing into that blanket. Exhalation when everything releases. And if you rounded your back and maybe even wrap your arms around you, or potentially even let your head drop, you might start feeling much more space in between of your shoulder blades. You might start feeling that lots of space for the expansion at the back of the body. And as everything is really squashed in the front in this position, you really have no other choice to breathe than to breathe to the back of your rib cage. So rather than trying to desperately direct the breath to where it doesn't have any space in the front, you're directing it to the places where it has plenty of space at the back of the rib cage. And at that lowest end of the rib cage where you still feel potentially that pressing into the blanket on the inhale and softening on the exhale. Okay. Now there are a few other ways you can get to that back side of the rib cage from different positions. So the good way to get to that feeling of what's happening at the back of the body as you breathe is to use the child's pose. And I would also recommend to use a pillow on top of your thighs for this one, or a blanket like we did last time. So you will see what you're going to feel comfortable with. Of course, child's pose might not be comfortable for your knees or for your ankles. So please prop yourself the way you need to, filling up all the gaps between your buttocks and the heels, maybe keeping your knees a little bit wider, maybe placing something underneath the front of the ankles or in between of the thighs and the calves so that you're comfortable in this position. So once you've found your version of what works for you to sit on the heels, you're going to fold forward from here and have something between your thighs and the belly. It could be a pillow, it could be a blanket. You will see what works for you. And then you can let your head hang. And again, if that hanging is not comfortable, you could find some ways using props or your own hands to support that head. But basically, what you really want to find is the rounded shape in your back. So if you're in a child's pose, but you kind of end up somewhere like this, that is not going to work because there's no rounding here. It's more flat. You want to get yourself into that rounded shape. So once you found a position that is comfortable and where you feel that your back is in a rounded shape, your whole back, that's where you're going to stay for a while. And again, there is really not that much space for you to breathe in the front of the body. Your belly and the front of the chest presses against that pillow. There's no space for the breath there, but there's plenty of space at the back of the body. And that's where your attention goes. And you can really focus on the whole body, the whole back of the body. So even though your lungs end just where your rib cage ends, it doesn't mean that there is no movement, that there is no space being created at the lower back. If you had one of your hands for extra feedback, resting on your back, you might feel movement even underneath the palm that is resting on the lower back. There is expansion there. Not just a little bit higher. And the visualization works really well.
You can imagine that whole space opening up towards the ceiling on inhale and dropping, sinking, softening down to the earth on the exhale.
As a side effect, it might also feel quite good for your lower back. Okay, so that might already make quite a difference, but if you need still a little bit more of feedback, something to work against, to feel it tiny bit more, you can get your blanket one more time. Sorry, your belt one more time. So now you're taking the belt and one more time finding the space at the lower end of your rib cage. But this time you're gonna go into all fours position. And you can use your own palms to prop, to immobilize the ends of the belt. And you can find a place where you have that most comfortable support for all four limbs, and that you're not sinking, you're not collapsing into your wrists, you're not collapsing the space between the shoulder blades, you're not collapsing that lower back, but you're also, for a moment, you're not kind of pushing against everything either. There's like a line of connection between the top of the head and the tail, basically. So once you found that more neutral spine, your whole attention now goes where you have that feedback from the belt. And here it's a little bit harder because you're going to work against the gravity. Breathing in to that belt, letting just that space where the lower rib cage is lift, so that the belt becomes more taut on the inhale, more tense. And then on the exhale, you feel that it's kind of releasing. It's losing its grip. And don't confuse it with making this from the hands. The hands don't help you with that. It's not the movement of your torso or of your arms. It's the movement that comes from the breath itself. So this is literally the only part that is going to move. The space between the shoulder blades doesn't push up. So you can try a few of these again. And then let's do the final check. So sit in the same position that where you started, whether it was a chair or sitting on the ground. And again, take your belt, wrap it around that lower end of the rib cage, cross it over, hold on to lightly to both ends. Check that you're not tensing your shoulders, that you let your arms hang down from the shoulders. And return to the breathing. And to that feedback. Is it any easier to feel the movement at the back of the ribcage now? You can also check for something like, is your shoulders lifting when you inhale? Can you keep it down? The breath, mostly in the lower section. I hope that you did feel the difference. And next time I'm going to show you how you can feel more the sides of the rib cage. So I hope that this was really helpful, that you keep on gaining more awareness in the way you breathe, and that your breath is getting more efficient, your diaphragm is getting freer. And if you'd like to see other videos on breathing, there are plenty on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. I share one video every Monday morning. I also teach bedtime breathing sessions. You can check it on my website. You can see all those details in the description below. Thank you.